Time LA.
The frequent flyer miles.
ESPN's Buster Olney with Armen and Levack. He's at LAX getting the heck out of there, just like the Mets did last night. They were victorious in Game 5. Buster, a lot went on in that game. What was the play of the game in Game 5 of the NLDS?
Oh, Daniel Murphy taking third base and basically stealing a run for the Mets. And, it was interesting because even after the game, hours after it took place, when I was in the Dodgers clubhouse, I listened to Zach Greinke and talked to Corey Seager and had heard Don Mattingly in the interview room. And there's still, I think the Dodgers still weren't clear who exactly made a mistake and who should have done it. Was it the coaching staff who didn't address the possibility of a shift in that situation when there was the walk? And why would you in some respects? Or was it Corey Seager, young shortstop? Or, was it Zach Greinke? Bottom line is they collectively failed, and the Mets stole a run in a game that was so low scoring. Huge play, and what a performance by Murphy in this game.
Was that the most a team has ever exposed the shift with Murphy's heads-up base running?
I've seen it, and actually some of the Dodgers were talking about how Jimmy Rollins had done a very similar thing during the Dodgers' last homestand. And they talked about it. The Dodgers talked about, okay, if there's a base hit and the guy gets a second, remember, someone's got to cover third. But I just don't think for any of them that it was instinct that might be a possibility on a walk, which is why they were caught flat-footed from the coaches to Seager to Greinke. And they didn't react well. It was probably one of those loophole plays that no one had really considered. And I loved Daniel Murphy's description about, he wanted to go in with a cloaking device over him so no one could see that he was thinking about it.
Buster Olney, thanks to All-Star Wine and Spirits. Buster, does Don Mattingly get fired in the offseason?
I know that the working relationship between Andrew Friedman, who's the Dodgers president of baseball ops, and Don Mattingly is a good one, and they get along very well personally. If I had to guess, I think that Don's going to get fired. First off, the people who have saved him in the past, ownership, they now have had 3 straight years where they didn't go as far in the postseason as they wanted. So I think that maybe his get-out-of-jail-free card with that group is gone. And here's the thing, too. Andrew Friedman didn't hire him. And if you're Andrew Friedman and you have a $300 million payroll and you're moving forward, you would assume you'd want your own guy. And, maybe Don is now Andrew's guy, but my guess is he's not. My guess is it's someone like Ron Renicky, who was brought on board by the Dodgers late in the season as a third base coach, could be the guy, or maybe it's Bud Black, who used to be the Padres manager. I think that, if I were to bet the family farm back in Vermont one way or the other, I'd say he's going to get fired.
Is that it for Don Mattingly, or does he get another opportunity, you think?
Oh, he'll get another opportunity because the players like him, despite what you saw from Andre Ethier during the game last night. They really like and respect him, and they feel like that he's someone who has a lot of empathy for them. And I think that, like a lot of managers, and we've seen this with A.J. Hinch, where they learn a lot going from the first job to the second job. I think Donnie would fall in that category. But I do think Don needs to work for a more traditional front office. This, something I wrote in my column today. I mean, I've known him for a long time, and it was just, haven't been around him in recent years for Sunday Night Baseball. Just as this postseason played out, he just seemed beaten down. And I wonder if that's when you have a front office which is very engaged and very active and probably having conversation about how the lineup is structured and who's going to play and who's not going to play. Maybe it would be good for him to go and manage at a more traditional place. And I'm just throwing this out there because we know that the Marlins are interested, like the Miami Marlins.
ESPN's Buster Olney calling from LAX with Armen and Levack 104.5. The team, thanks to All-Star Wine and Spirits. And Buster, the Mets put Jeurys Familia out there for the 6-out save, the first of his career last night. What does that decision tell us about Terry Collins?
That he has tremendous faith in Familia. And I remember last month, at the time that we had the Mets and the Yankees on Sunday Night Baseball, he said to me, you know what, you can make a case right now that this guy's the best closer in baseball, which seems, at first blush, you're like, really? You think so? And then you begin to go through the names and you begin to look at his performance the way that he's used that nasty two-seam fastball, that everybody calls a splitter, but he throws with a two-seam fastball grip. It makes you understand that, Collins had seen so many great things out of Familia that he felt very good going there. And it may also, let's face it, reflect a little bit less confidence in Tyler Clippard with the way that he handled his bullpen last night, going from DeGrom to Syndergaard to Familia and bypassing Clippard altogether.
Buster, Matt Harvey going to get the start Saturday in Game 1. How much is on the line for him personally in this performance?
I think he's kind of moved past the whole conversation about his innings now because, he pitched in Game 3. He has, and I think that Terry's done a great job of protecting him in terms of his public image. He keeps on talking about what a tough guy he is. He keeps on talking about how Harvey wants to pitch. And just the simple fact that he's willing to take the ball in Game 1 tells you that Harvey, at the very least, is willing to go above and beyond what had been scripted for him before. And so I don't think that's as important now. If he has even if he has a bad start at this point, I think the Mets have done well enough where that's not necessarily going to hang on him as much as we thought. Now, if he starts Game 1 and all of a sudden we learn that he's on a pitch count of 75, there would be questions asked.
Right. ESPN's Buster Olney with Armen and Levack. Thanks to All-Star Wine and Spirits. Buster, how does this Mets roster differ from your prototypical team that would make the NLCS?
Oh, boy. I think that what distinguishes them is just the depth of their rotation. It's the reason why, even though they went 0 for 7 against the Cubs this year, and when they played them, they're a better matchup for the Cubs than the Dodgers would have been, because there are not many teams. I mean, you look at the Kansas City Royals, and they've got 2 starters and then probably 2 question marks. The Blue Jays are a little bit like that. Most teams are this time of year. I mean, shoot, the Giants last year had Madison Bumgarner throwing 90% of their innings, and the Mets can roll out 4 high-end starters. Now, I think as time has gone on, and this happens every October, some guys just slide into deep funks, and you have no idea if they're going to get out of it. And I think that's where we kind of are with Lucas Duda. And it might be, where we are with a couple of other guys. You're still waiting for Wilmer Flores really to step out. But when you have pitching like that, I think your margin for error is so good that you can get by with an offense that's not really that spectacular.
When you look at the headlines, what fascinates you most about this matchup between the Mets and the Cubbies?
The pitching against the hitting, because I don't think there's any doubt that, pound for pound, man for man, the Cubs have the most talented group of position players in baseball. When you can talk about someone like a Kyle Schwarber being a complementary hitter in a group that has Anthony Rizzo and Chris Bryant, and even Javier Baez is taking over at shortstop for Addison Russell. He may have more swing and miss issues than a lot of classic hitters. He also might have more bat speed than any hitter in baseball, based on your conversations with talent evaluators. And just, you love the big hitters with the big power facing a rotation full of guys who just throw so hard.
Buster, what's your gut tell you about this series, Mets-Cubs? Who wins it?
I think I told you guys this last week, or maybe it might have been the week before that. I really have thought all along that the team that won the National League wildcard game was going to win the World Series. And I think the Cubs are going to win the World Series. I think they've become this irresistible force. And the only question is any team can be a speed bump for them because they're playing with so much confidence. It's such a well-rounded team. Joe Madden has done such a phenomenal job with them. And look, I just think that they've got a good enough rotation with Arrieta and John Lester, and they have that deep lineup. This time of year, teams get shut down offensively, and they have not been because they're just swinging the bat so well.
All right, so one of my favorite storylines from the DS is the Schwarber home run ball that's now encased on top of the Cubs scoreboard. How do you feel about it? Did you like this?
I do, and in fact, we were joking. I can't remember who I was talking with about yesterday. We were joking about the idea that they need to make this like part of a tour right, going forward with the Cubs, especially if they win the World Series. Build some stairs up to that spot.
Yes.
Put that something in glass where it's not going to be affected by conditions. Have security spotlight on it at night. And then during the day, you can lead all these Cubs fans, paraded them up as part of the tour, and give them tissues as they cry. Seeing that ball where it landed at the end. I tell you what, it is fun. The times I've been at Wrigley Field and been around Cubs fans, it's been so much fun to see their passion with what's going on with their team. And Schwarber's, his home run is going to be one of those ones that goes down in lore. It's kind of like Levack, if you're a Yankee fan, you still remember the sight of Reggie Jackson's home run bouncing in those black seats in the background, the third and final home run in 1977. That home run is going to stand up over time.
Buster Olney calling from LAX with Armen and Levack 104.5 The Team. Thanks to All Star Wine and Spirits. Buster, have you ever witnessed a crazier seventh inning than Texas-Toronto on Wednesday night?
I heard people say that, and I've been racking my brain, and I'm sure that other circumstances have come up where you go, wow. But just the sequence of events is unprecedented. There's no doubt about it. When you have, first off, that call that was made initially, and I think Dale Scott and the umpiring crew did a great job of that because, he realized after he initially called timeout that the right call was to have the runner come home and that he was entitled to that base. And even though the Blue Jays would have protested the game if they had lost, it was absolutely the right thing to do. And I respect Dale Scott for coming out afterwards saying he made a mistake with the initial, wave off that he gave. To see the fans' reaction after that, something I think that, Major League Baseball and the security folks in Toronto need to talk about because that began to feel like it got ugly. But then to have Elvis Andrus, this veteran player who's been in the World Series before, melt down the way that he did defensively, that was just stunning. And, of course, the bat flip heard around the world, which is generating more opinion, I think, than any bat flip ever, any swing ever. All of that we're going to be talking about for years to come.
All right, so who do you like coming out of the AL? Is it going to be the Blue Jays or the Royals?
I like the Royals. I think the more interesting conversation about that series is let's set the over-under on bench-clearing incidents. I'm going to put it at 4 because these are two teams that are easily offended. Anytime somebody throws the ball inside to Josh Donaldson, he gets upset. If someone quick pitches, he gets upset. We saw the Royals, early in the year. They had a number of incidents. And when these two teams played, it seemed like every other inning they were clearing the benches. And with all the tension and all the pressure, absolutely there'll be some of that in this series. I do think the Royals are going to win this series. I like their experience. And, look, I think David Price is going to make $150 million this winter as a free agent. But the thing is, I think he deals with some adrenaline issues in the postseason where he's got to sort of go through some reps to figure out how he's going to deal with that. And, maybe this will be the time when he gets over the hump in the postseason. But I just like the fact that the Royals got home field. They open up in their home park. They're such a great defensive team. They've been there, and they've been through it before. And I wonder if all that aggressiveness from the Royals hitter or the Blue Jays hitters eventually comes back to bite them.
All right, Buster, we'll be reading your columns every day at ESPN.com as an ESPN Insider. Where are you headed? What games will you be covering from here on out?
I'm covering the National League Championship Series. I'll have the Mets on that side. So I'm flying back home, and cool thing is I get to mow my lawn on Sunday morning.
That sounds really cool, Buster.
Just look on the bright side. Armen can't mow a lawn. He's allergic to fresh cut grass.
That's true.
So.
I can help you out, man, if you ever need something.
See, that's what I would have told my mom when I was a kid, too.
It's Buster. I break out.
His mom yells at me for teasing him, actually.
My mom has called into the show, Buster, so don't make her call in. Be careful how you approach this.
Yeah, no. I get it. I know what you do. You take something like, what is that stuff you put on your eggs in the morning? That really hot stuff, Tabasco.
Oh, yeah, Tabasco,
probably
right.
Put Tabasco sauce all over your arm when you were a kid. You learned how to raise those bumps. Way to go.
It is legit, Buster. I have to use a Ventolin inhaler. Stop it, you guys.
I love it.
Buster, jump on that plane, man. Safe travels. We'll bug you again next week. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.